How is it rocking, Dween Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dween Nation and the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and time has ticked, and it has stopped because the NFL schedule has been released. So many games, so much excitement. Genoa, how are you feeling about tonight?
Yo, Dween Nation, I'm feeling great, Justin. Hey, it's about to be a great summer, Justin. We are officially on football season time. The draft is over, free agency is over, and now, Justin, the schedule is out. We know what we're gonna see week 1 all the way through week 18. Fantasy season is officially upon us, Justin. Schedule release is out. I'm so excited to get this summer underway and the road to September and week 1, and I'm so excited to just watch football again, Justin. We miss it.
I can't wait to dig into this stuff, but hey, I want to get your thoughts quickly on the news. Hard Knocks. I'm not sure. You watched. They
Yeah.
have training camp. They got in season, and now they're starting with off season Hard Knocks with the New York Giants. Kind of interesting. One of the lower teams, sure,
Yeah.
but I'm interested to see free agency talks and draft room if they include any of that. What's your excitement on the Hard Knocks?
Yeah, I heard it's the Giants, correct?
The
You
New
know,
York
I,
Giants.
I, I do like the Giants, I guess, to see what they're going to figure out at the quarterback situation. Maybe a guy like Drew Lock can be a funny guy for the Hard Knocks. That'd be kind of like every year in Hard Knocks there's that one random funny guy. Whether he stays on the team or doesn't, he kind of just steals the show. So maybe Drew Lock or someone could be like that. I would have liked to see though, like the Cardinals or maybe the Bears, kind of like to see what the process was since trading Justin Fields, getting Caleb Williams, or in Arizona, kind of like keeping Kyler Murray happy and getting him, Maserati Marv. But hey, you can never go wrong with Hard Knocks. It's always a good watch.
Definitely. But yeah, okay, we'll see that off season, then we'll see training camp and of course the season. But now we want to look at, what everybody's most excited for is week 1, September 5th through, September 6th. I mean, we're so lucky this year cuz it's starting a little bit earlier. Usually it's like, around the 10th. This is the
Yeah.
5th. Week 1 starts Thursday night, of course, the reigning Super Bowl champs are going to be at home versus the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, let's dive into that just a little quick. I know we talked about it because of course they had a hard fought battle in the AFC Championship, but it's a new season, new looks for each team. What are your thoughts going into the first game of the season?
Yeah, Justin, this game is going to be so dynamic to see. So glad that with Kansas City, rolls down that banner for the third time in the last 7 years in the Mahomes era. It's going to be Lamar Jackson watching that and wishing he would have had something to do with that in this past year's AFC Championship. But Justin, right off the bat, this matchup is the best possible in my opinion. I know they talked about Cincinnati. I don't feel like it's best to put Joe Burrow, who's not ultimately 100%. The frustrations of T. Higgins. I don't think that team can really beat Kansas City right now, coming off the Super Bowl win. And as well as my Houston Texans, I do think that we did have a great year. We do have the Rookie of the Year on both sides of the ball, but they're not ultimately ready yet. They need a couple more tests before they can go through Kansas City. We're still a younger team. Still inexperienced a little bit, have some under belt this past year with D'Amico Ryan. So this is the best matchup, Justin, and this Justin is going to be better than last year's opener. When it was Detroit at Kansas City, Detroit won by 1 point. Because Patrick Mahomes, was stopped on all 4 downs to end that game. So I do like Baltimore to put up a fight, Justin. However, I do think the Chiefs start 1-0 because I think that this is going to be a start of Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady S 17-0 MVP year. And I do think he's going to have, kind of like how Peyton Manning did years ago, where he started off week 1 with like 6 or 7 touchdowns. I think that's going to be something that Mahomes has. He has now the weapons to go along with Travis Kelce. And, this is going to be a great game week 1. No doubt Lamar is going to do his thing. But at the end, it's going to be Mahomes winning week 1. I'm going to say 4 touchdowns. I'm going to say 340 yards because they are going to be home. So I do like 340, 4 touchdowns. And a good quarterback, rating. I would say maybe that 90, 80, 85, 90 over. So I like Mahomes in that game. I like Lamar in that game. So, hey, that's going to be a great start to fantasy season, Justin. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that game? What are your thoughts?
Dude, I love that you mentioned, Peyton Manning had, that big 7 touchdown game to start the season, and it was against the Baltimore Ravens all
Yep.
those years ago, kind of wrapping back around. Mahomes has, higher talent on his team now with Worthy, Hollywood Brown, of course, got Kelsey, Pacheco, maybe not Rashee Rice, but still just a great team all around. And then the Ravens, Derrick Henry's in town, man. Big boy is going to score some touchdowns. They're going to ground and pound. I know the Chiefs had a really good, defensive line last year, and that's going to be a battle. That's going to be a sluggish fight. Derrick Henry, Chris Jones. I'm really excited for it. I agree. Chiefs on top to start the season, unlike last year where Detroit pulled off the upset. Chiefs riding high. I like that. And then we get lucky. We get our first Brazil game, and it's on Friday. So we get football Thursday, Friday, some college on Saturday, and back on Sunday for the first week of the NFL. But Friday, Packers at Philadelphia Eagles. Crazy game. I actually love it. I see these two teams very similarly. You can argue they're the favorites in their division. Hurts versus Love. I'm really excited for it. And I think, honestly, this game could kind of set each team on a certain path or how the season's going to unfold. So I really like what that game's going to be. What are your thoughts with Love versus Hurts?
That Justin, these are the top three teams, not including Detroit. So this is two of the top three teams, in my opinion, in the NFC. So that's a perfect matchup there, Justin. We get it on a Friday night, Justin. So cancel all plans the first Friday night in September. We're watching some football, and also, like you mentioned, getting ready for the next day because that's going to be college football. We can't miss those days. Those are just as important, Justin, as our NFL days. You know it as you're an Aggie, Justin. You love, College Station. They love their football there. I'm in Houston / Austin. We love our football on this side of town, as you may know. So Friday is the perfect day to have that game, Justin. Jordan Love, who had a hot ending to the season, won a playoff game, a dominant game in Dallas. He put up a fight in San Francisco. He could have won that game. They were up kind of late in that game. But now Jordan Love goes to Brazil to play Jalen Hurts, who is one of my, co-MVP favorites under Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in this league, a winner in this league. That's going to be a dynamic matchup, Justin. If I had to pick a winner, it's very tough, but I do like Jalen Hurts winning once, kind of late in the game. I do think Green Bay is a very tough team. They're going to be tough defensively, Justin. They got, your fellow Aggie and Cooper, and, he's going to be good. And so, that's going to be good, defense in Green Bay along with Jordan Love and those offensive weapons, Justin. They added Josh Jacobs. And, they're going to be, that's going to be a great team too there. They're going to have a tough loss. What do you think, Justin? Are you going to take my side here? Are you going to go with those beloved Eagles that I so love as well?
I bleed green, so I really like them. Fly Eagles fly. Obviously, it's a neutral site, so it's not
Yeah.
a home game for anybody, and we've never
Yeah.
seen a game in Brazil before, so it's going to be a whole new environment for both teams. And looking out for May, you just got to look at the storylines of it. I mean, Jordan versus Jalen, Saquon versus Jacobs, both running backs on new teams. Touted to be their next workhorse backs for each squad. AJ Brown versus Jair Alexander. It's going to be really exciting. And I'm all for it. I got the Eagles in a close one. And usually it's, maybe due to just, ramping up a slow start. The Packers usually start a little slow heading into the season. It happens most years. And so just say Philly takes that one. And then, we hit Sunday. And I'll run by, let's just run through some of these. More of like, let's talk about maybe the quick storylines out of each. We got Pittsburgh at Atlanta, Kirk Cousins versus Russell Wilson, new quarterbacks at the helm. Real quick, I think what would be your first take on, how they could do in these games?
Justin, I love this game. This is a potential shootout. Justin, you got to look at it this way. Both teams have taken turns towards the right direction. Both from last year had mediocre quarterbacks that were never going to do anything. They drafted each of these quarterbacks, got rid of both sides, got rid of them, brought two new quarterbacks on both sides. We don't know who's going to end up at quarterback for the end of this year on either side, Justin. But at the end of the day, this potentially could be a shootout just because of the weapons on both sides of the ball on both teams. I mean, we're looking at Atlanta. There's Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They got Mooney there. Kirk Cousins is a slinging quarterback. Or if Penix gets thrown there randomly, who knows? It's the NFL. And on the other side, you have Russell Wilson / Fields, both quarterbacks that I like, that I still believe have a future either one of them have a future on this team, I believe. And I like the offensive talent too. Najee had a down year, but he has potential. We like Jalen Warren. We like George Pickens. They brought in, Roman Wilson, who we talked about a few weeks ago, who's been impressive at camp, Justin.
Yes.
Very impressive at camp. They love him there in Pittsburgh, and you hit it on the money. This guy could be potentially be like a Hines Ward. There has that potential. So, this is going to be a kind of a slugfest, kind of those games. It's like 27, 23, 30, 27-ish. Not too, but it's you look at these players' stats, and they have great games. Bijan might have a good game. Najee for fantasy. Maybe Drake London has his pop-off game to start off this season. Maybe Pickens. Maybe even Roman Wilson said, hey, I'm the rookie of the year. Maybe I want to prove something here. So, Justin, that is one of the, best games to start off this week one.
Yeah, no, what I would say on it is we're looking at the fantasy football's biggest enemy and rival, Arthur Smith. He is the new OC for the Steelers, playing his formerly head coach team, the Falcons. That is some wild stuff. Najee versus Bijan. I love it. As you mentioned, Roman Wilson, who I just scooped up in our Dynasty draft. Very happy about that. I think this could be, I know it's early, this could be one of those games where Roman Wilson has a huge debut that nobody's expecting because they have Pickens, but Pickens is going to be guarded by A.J. Terrell. We just know it. And Roman Wilson comes in and becomes, already a fantasy football darling. And, people are scrambling on the waiver wires in week 2 trying to scoop him up because he's really good, guys. He's really good. And this game is going to bring it out. As you mentioned, I think it's going to be throwing the rock around Kirk. Kirk and Russ, that's what they do nowadays. And so I like it a lot. And quickly, if I thought someone would win, I'd hope it'd be Atlanta just because I don't like Arthur Smith. But anyway, moving to the next one. Arizona, Buffalo, Josh Allen, Maserati Marv, Kyler Murray, Keon Coleman. It's pretty nice. I think this game might be the highest scoring game of the week if we're talking about shootouts. That's really exciting to see. Yeah, what do you think, man? What do you think, Jano?
I like it and I don't. Here's the thing, Justin. Is the weather going to be a factor? Buffalo's weather is kind of shaky. I know it kind of starts later in the season with the snow, but it just depends. If it's nice and sunny out there at Orchard Park, where the Bills play, I do like them to prevail. I do think it's going to be one of those 37-24 games. I do think Kyler and Marv connect on a touchdown, kind of like in garbage time, not like fourth quarter garbage time, Justin, but kind of like mid third quarter garbage time. Like maybe if the Bills are up, 20 to like 7 at halftime, and it's kind of like they're kind of playing catch back and forth because the Bills score. I feel like Maserati Marv gets his first touchdown there. I like Kyler to do pretty decent there. So if I had to pick a winner, definitely the Bills. I would say 37-24.
Yeah, good. And this is kind of a new era for, not both teams, but you kind of see a new star franchise number 1 wide receiver for each team, honestly, with Keon Coleman and Marvin Harrison. But, you still got speedy quarterbacks who have some major arms. So I like that game. And I'm going to run through a few of them and I just get your takes on each of these. We got Tennessee at Chicago, Will Levis versus Caleb. New England versus Cincinnati. Let's see if Joe Burrow and his squad can start off hot, which they have not done in 2 years. And, of course, Houston at the Colts, who I'm very excited about. C.J. Stroud versus A.R. Anthony Richardson. What are your thoughts out of these 3 games that I just mentioned?
Justin, as a Texans fan, I'm already having my eye on this game. I had it circled. I've said it. The Colts are going to be very stingy this year. They're going to be one of the more sneakier teams in the AFC. I have them probably getting the 4th or 5th seed. They're going to be up there with my Houston Texans to win that division. It's going to be a literally a claw fest. It's going to be a scratch to the finish. I do believe I want to go with my team and say they win 21-19. But the Colts, Justin, are no slouch. They are not to be underestimated. With Anthony Richardson healthy there, Shane Steichen, one of the better, younger, and like inexperienced head coaches. He only had a year or 2 under his belt. He is, those coaches that you have to fear and really have to beat him. It's those type of games that you have to really. It comes down to the final plays of the game. You know what I mean? It's like the fourth quarter, who's getting those first downs, who's converting, and who's getting points that just cuts time. So I have my Texans barely winning it with Stroud there. But that's a game that I definitely have my eye on. But if I wasn't a Texans fan, obviously, Justin, it's definitely Caleb Williams, his debut, home at Tennessee. You have to believe that this is the game that Caleb Williams has to win to go 1-0, build his confidence. They are home in Chicago. Will Levis on the road, I don't trust. I like Will Levis a lot better on at home. He's not really the biggest road quarterback that's impressive. So this is a great start for the number one overall pick to get his offense installed, to understand what it is to play in the NFL in his first game against a quarterback that you can argue that Caleb Williams is definitely better than Will Levis, even though Will Levis has a year out of him. I think everyone would take Caleb. So we like to see that. And with that last game, Drake May, hopefully he starts. I think he will in Cincinnati. Hopefully Drake May can put on some fireworks there in Cincinnati. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Cincinnati just tramples him just because it's a rookie head coach and a rookie.
Yeah, I for some reason I'm feeling that New England Cincinnati game is going to be like that Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati game that happened in probably like 2 or 3 years back. You remember? It was like turnover, overtime. Pittsburgh wins, but I think Cincinnati will still pull it out. But I think it'll be like weirdly close and kind of ugly to watch. And I
that
agree
was a
with
week
you.
one. Oh my bad.
Yeah, week one. Yeah. And then Cincinnati, Tennessee, and Chicago. Will Levis and Caleb Williams got some revamped wide receiver rooms. Top of the class. Of course, Chicago's is more well known with Keenan, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and then the other side's still really good. Ridley, Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks. Like things look good for each side. But Caleb, to me, has put in the best opportunity for a first game. Tennessee is a bad secondary. It's a new coach. Like, that's a game to jump on if Caleb Williams wants to jump on any game. And, oh, my gosh, if he goes out for 303 scores or whatever, the world is going to be freaking out at the possibilities of Caleb Williams. So really going to keep an eye on that. And then Houston and Indy, as you mentioned, wow. I mean, the Colts got the first, lick at it last year. They won the first game that they had against each other. But then the Texans got the last laugh, beating, Gardner Minshew and the Colts to make it to the playoffs and win the division. And so now we're at a point where, CJ and the Texans are kind of riding a lot of momentum with all the great moves they did. And the Colts are just sneakily getting there. They're scary. Like you said, they're going to be stingy. They're going to be close all season. And to me, this game could really determine how the division is going to look. Because if the Colts win, it's going to Week 18. One of those two teams will be the division winner again, like it was last season. So, really excited to see those games. And then the next three, we got Jacksonville at Miami. Got tank for Lawrence, tank for Tua. Carolina at New Orleans, Minnesota at the Giants. Genoa, give me your take on these three games.
Well, Minnesota at New York doesn't quite interest me well, Justin. That'll be the game that I'll just check to see on what Jefferson is doing. But other than that, I'm not really interested in McCarthy versus Daniel Jones. Carolina at New Orleans could be a quite interesting matchup. Not anything that you want to look at going into week one, even like the night before, Sunday. But it's one of those games that end up being kind of close. Maybe like a 26-23 kind of game. You know what? I'm going to give Bryce Young the edge here. I feel like Carolina might start off a little hot. I feel like, last year was such a bad taste in their mouth that I feel like Dave Canales is kind of going to implement this summer a better culture, more improved culture. They might not win, as many games as people think, maybe like 9, 10, but I feel like they have a lot of solid games throughout the year where you're like, you know what? Carolina's going to be solid. They're going to be just okay. Bryson's going to be all right. Just give him 3 to 4 years and he'll be up there. He'll be along with whoever, right? So definitely, I like Carolina to sneak one out. 26-23. I'm going to give Bryce Young a late go-ahead touchdown, kind of like a deep throw to one of his guys. Maybe Leggett might do it, Justin. Maybe a Thielen touchdown. But I'm feeling like a 56-yard bomb, Bryce Young in the dome to win that game, to get Carolina 1-0 and Dave Canales' first win. And I loved how you mentioned tank for Tua versus tank for Lawrence. That was a thing 3 or 4 years ago in the making. Right. It happened to both teams, tank for Tua, tank for Lawrence. And now it's going to go down in Miami. And I like Miami to just steamroll them here, Justin. I think it's going to be one of those classic Tyreek Hill games. I'm thinking 41-21 here. I think Jacksonville is going to be pretty good this year, but I don't think they'll start off that way. It's going to take some time. They did lose Calvin Ridley. They kind of take a step back with getting like Gabe Davis, but I do like Brian Thomas to have a pretty decent game. Those rookie show outs,
Yeah.
but I like those classic Tyreek Hill games in Miami. He's done it almost every home game last year. Those 50-yard bomb TDs there that he does in Hard Rock Stadium. He's going to go for 125 and 2 scores, Tyreek Hill. And I think Jalen Waddle gets a touchdown too. I would say about 86 yards in a TD. And I said 41-21 Miami there, starting things off there hot.
I think I completely agree with just about all of what you said. Miami, they've been known to kind of slow down over the back half, but the front half, if we're
Yeah.
sticking with that, they're going to be electric. And what we saw from Jacksonville last year was just trash. They really fell off after being the division favorites for much of the season. And so we didn't see anything that really is giving us reason to bump them up at all. I mean, I like Brian Thomas Jr. Gabe Davis is really and then the defense didn't improve enough to be scary at all. And then Carolina and New Orleans, it's a really interesting take you have with Bryce Young stealing one in the Superdome. I honestly think I know it's not great to maybe overreact to week 1, but if Carolina pulls off beating the Saints in week 1, Saints got to just pack up the bags. Like, start thinking about, hey, let me get up to the top next year in the draft. Let's find our new quarterback because Derek Carr is cheeks. Or let's take out Carr. Let's throw in Rattler. Let's start figuring something out because if Derek Carr starts out with a doozy, I'm going to be worried. I'm going to be really worried, especially for guys like Chris Olave, which I'm already worried about. But if it starts off poorly like that, things could already be being really sour for the Saints. And then Minnesota and the Giants, it's like it might even be Daniel Jones versus Sam Darnold, which could be interesting. Malik Neighbors versus Justin Jefferson, both LSU products. Interesting to see. I agree, though, with I feel like a big game from Aaron Jones maybe on the Vikings side of it because the Giants, it's not great. The roster doesn't look too pretty. They had some big moves like Brian Burns, Neighbors, but it also is maybe you could argue, this is Daniel Jones's last chance to be the guy, and maybe he puts one out there that we don't expect. But as of right now, I'm not expecting a big game from the Giants. And then let's move to the 3:00 games. Vegas at the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh's first coach game for the Chargers. Denver at Seattle. Geno versus Bo Nix. I mean, obviously Seattle and Broncos are linked together through the Super Bowl a handful of years ago, along with that big trade a couple years ago with Russell Wilson. And then, we got Dallas at Cleveland and Tom Brady's first announced game. Micah Parsons versus Myles Garrett. Deshaun Watson versus Dak Prescott. And then our last 3:00 game, Washington at Tampa Bay. Jaden Daniels' first game in Tampa Bay versus Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. What are your takes on all 4 of these games?
Okay, a lot to cover here, Justin. So here we go. With the Vegas Raiders versus the Chargers, we get Antonio Pierce lined up with Jim Harbaugh and his, coaching return in the NFL. That's going to be a head coaching dynamic matchup in that division for years to come. I'm so excited to see that's the matchup that they gave for week 1. I love that coaching matchup. It could be a better matchup if the Raiders had a better quarterback. Could be good. I think the Chargers kind of get away with it late. I would say maybe 24-13, 24-17, but the Chargers win. That's, that second game with Denver being at Seattle. Kind of interesting. Both teams, have gotten rid of Russell. So it's the two X's kind of just hanging out. And the two X's of the X kind of hanging out and be like, yeah, that guy was terrible or whatever, right? So pretty much the Broncos, they might put up slightly of a fight there, but I do like the coaching debut of Mike Macdonald to kind of just edge up with the Seahawks winning. Not too interesting there. Maybe if you have DK Metcalf, or maybe you want to just tune in and see how Bo Nix is doing. That game isn't all that interesting, but oh well. But here, this game is interesting, Justin. You kind of mentioned these matchups with Dallas and Cleveland, but there's a revenge game brewing there, and it's Amari Cooper home versus the Cowboys, the team that traded him away for a fifth-round pick are now lining up for a Week 1 matchup in Cleveland. And Dallas is usually kind of starting in New York Week 1, or they're home with some team. It's kind of going back and forth. I know a couple years ago they opened up in Tampa, but I think it's because the Bucs had just won the Super Bowl and it's Tom Brady.
Right.
But other than that, it's always like in Dallas, or even it's like on a Sunday night maybe, or on a Thursday night. But now, Justin, it's a 3 o'clock game, which we haven't seen in quite years. I know last year Dallas opened up home with New York. A year ago they were at New York, and then a year ago, 2 years ago, they had Dallas home with Tampa Bay. Mike Evans, your Aggie guy, kind of sealing that game with that late go-ahead touchdown. And so that's going to be an interesting matchup there with Tom Brady calling the game. That's going to be a great matchup. And, Washington and Tampa Bay is going to be one of those games that are pretty interesting to watch, kind of like in the third, fourth. It kind of produces some fantasy value if you think about it. It's going to be kind of like a 28-21 game. It's kind of what you look at one of those games like, wow, it didn't even seem like it was so high scoring, but it was kind of interesting. Maybe Jaden Daniels kind of shows some flashes later in the game. I think he does struggle in the first 2 quarters. That Tampa Bay defense is a little stingy, and I think that they added a couple more pieces there to get him better. So I do think he kind of struggles and he kind of makes his way back, but kind of like learns at the end. But they still lose. I do have the Bucs winning that game.
Yeah, I talking about that game, I feel like it's in a similar spot to the New Orleans Saints and Panthers, because if Tampa Bay loses this game at home, I'm going to be worried for their season because they're playing against a rookie quarterback. Dan Quinn hasn't been a head coach in a handful of years.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff Kingsbury experiment didn't work a handful of years ago. And it'll take them some time to get ramped up. While Tampa Bay, they're fresh off of, making a playoff run. I know they lost Dave Canales, and I don't expect this team to make a playoff run this year. But if they want to show off that they still have what it takes to do so, they got to get this victory, especially because Washington's defense is pretty meh, and Mike Evans is going to go for 100-some yards and a score, at least another one maybe. And then Dallas at Cleveland, this would be a huge win. I'm really excited for Cleveland. If they can pull this off, honestly, either way, if Dallas can pull off a road win in Cleveland, which Dallas has not been able to, be really impressive on the road, it could be really interesting. Dak versus Deshaun, Miles versus Micah. It's exciting to see. And of course, Tom Brady's first announced game, so we'll see how that goes. Denver at Seattle. We actually saw this game 2 years ago in Week 1 on Monday Night Football. Now it's at 3:00. Obviously, back then we saw the first game of Geno Smith in Seattle, where he was going this way after Week 1, while Russell and Denver was going this way. So we'll see if history repeats itself in that way with a new quarterback for Denver and Bo Nix. But Seattle should pull that off if they, because they're better set to win, as a Week 1 than Denver is. And then the Raiders at Chargers, I feel like that game is always close, no matter who's playing, or except I'll take that back because of that 63-point game from last year. But that was with no Herbert. So that game's going to be fun. New running backs in each backfield, Zamir White, new leader of the backfield running backs, and Zamir White, Gus Edwards. And we're just going to see 2 new squads, essentially, because now Pierce has his full grasp over the team as the head coach, and then Harbaugh, of course, and then Herbert having no wide receivers to throw to. But Gardner, who's the worst quarterback, has receivers to throw to. So we'll see how the back and forth goes. So really interesting games. I'd have Chargers, Seattle, Cleveland, Tampa. So those are all home games. So maybe the favorites are favored to win that game, but I still like all of them. And then we'll jump to Sunday night and Monday night. Rams at Detroit. Obviously Stafford versus Goff. This is a rematch from the playoffs in the wild card round this past season. And then Monday night, why do they got to do this to poor Aaron Rodgers? He's back on Monday night. He's in San Francisco, a great pass rushing team. And I saw the fun fact, or I guess unfun fact, that the guy that tackled Aaron Rodgers, Leonard Floyd, who, if it tore his Achilles on that play, is now on the 49ers, which is just like, what is the NFL doing here? They're trying to make things scary for our 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers and for the Jets. But still an interesting game. Both great defenses, so we'll see how that goes. But what are your thoughts on those two games before we get out of here?
So with the Rams, going back to Detroit, where their season ended, it's going to be very interesting to see if Stafford can pull a victory versus his former team. You know how crushed he was, Justin, to walk out of Ford Field with that difficult wild card loss. He kind of struggled with admitting it in that post conference. So, man, who's going to win that game? I'm going to give it again to Detroit. I just feel like Dan Campbell's going to have his team amped up, ready to go week one. The expectations there. It's no doubt going to be sold out there at Ford Field. It's probably the most expensive tickets I'm looking at here. At $214 is the lowest price there. It's pretty, all those fans are going to be crazy there in Detroit. So I'd like them to kind of edge another victory out. And the Lions are going to start 1-0. They're going to be one of the best teams in the NFC, chasing, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, with Philly and Green Bay in the NFC side. So they're going to start off with the victory. And with the Jets and the 49ers, I mean, Justin, these are two teams that gave just bad taste in our mouth this past season. I mean, with the 49ers, it's so back and forth with them, a little bit of drama. With the Jets, the same way. Just a lot of drama overall, a lot of nasty. Zach Wilson is what finally out of there, I believe. And San Francisco ended the season the worst way possible, in my opinion, just by losing in overtime, a walk-off touchdown by the great Patrick Mahomes, and that has to sting for a while, leading even to like week 7 or 8. So, I do have the 49ers to edge out. I just feel like Rodgers is going to start beating bad. And not to mention, Rodgers has started, his career against San Francisco has been so bad. I think he's 0-4 against them in the playoffs, whether it's in Candlestick Park or in Levi Stadium. Aaron Rodgers has always played so terribly in San Francisco. I think he's had about 1 or 2 victories. I think the last time he beat them, Justin, was when they were with Nick Mullins at quarterback. Whenever those 2 years where Jimmy Garoppolo was in and out the lineup, before they discovered Purdy, before they even got McCaffrey. And so, I feel like he's going to struggle again with, a team that isn't all the way experienced. So I like San Francisco there. I'm going to give them a 28-10 win.
Wow, that would be a beat down of sorts.
Yeah.
And just on that, this is just me, maybe a gut feeling. I'm a little worried for the Jets. Without injury, I just don't think the play calling's gonna be good. You saw the rumors that the Jets were trying to find a different offensive coordinator, but they're stuck with Hackett, and I don't like Hackett that much. Aaron Rodgers, as much as he's got the name, he's got the MVPs to back up his success in his career, hasn't been good in a couple of years. I know he's, of course, injured all of last year. But even his last year in Green Bay, it was man. Now he's coming off an Achilles injury. So I'm a little worried about the Jets. I feel like let's not get our hopes too high. I know the division's a little bit more wide open, but the Jets worry me just a bit. Of course, I like Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. I mean, Mike Williams coming off injury, so I'm a little worried there too. And then Malachi Corley, a little sleeper, who was drafted in the 3rd round for the Jets. But yeah, I think that game is San Francisco's to win, even though they might be dealing with a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover after losing a bitter loss to the Chiefs. And then with that LA versus Detroit game on Sunday night, Jared Goff, Mr. Moneybags, big contract, which wholly overpay. That was too much, but they did what they needed to do. They got their quarterback, their wide receiver locked up for the next handful of years. And I think they're going to start out the season hot, even though I really like what the Rams could do this year. But yeah, wow, a lot of storylines in week 1. And it literally took us 30-something minutes, and we could have really talked about it for 30-something hours.
Yeah.
Week 1's so juicy, and there's obviously 17 more weeks past it. And so we're going to dive into those after this video. We're going to cut it here, jump to our top 5 matchups, our favorite matchups of each season. And then we'll also have episodes covering team-by-team breakdown of each NFL game to, you guys can see what your team's records are after, all 18 games of the season. But that's week 1. We just, covered all, the storylines, predictions of week 1 that we've seen from, the NFL schedule release as of today. So thanks you guys for listening. Stay tuned because we're about to come back with something. And peace, y'all.
Peace.